Enoch Godongwana, South Africa's finance minister, quietly introduced the most aggressive crypto seizure regulation on the planet. Then the public found out. And now, his own government has been forced to move its deadline. 3 weeks ago, I published a breakdown of this draft. The response was immediate and global. South Africa's crypto community mobilized, legal experts flagged constitutional violations, and now the government that wrote this in the dark is rewriting its schedule in the light. The comments period was supposed to close May 18th. Then, June 10th. Now, it's June 30th. And it took 2 conflicting websites, 2 different email addresses, and a wave of public pressure to get there. 4 things today. Who Enoch Godongwana is and why his name is on this. What happened after the first video, the deadline chaos on screen in detail, and why none of this changes what every government watching just learned. If you are new here, subscribe. I cover the economics and public policy behind crypto. Let me be precise about who Enoch Godongwana is, because precision matters here. He is South Africa's Minister of Finance. He oversees the National Treasury. The National Treasury wrote the Draft Capital Flow Management Regulations of 2026. His name is on the Government Gazette publication. Not a deputy, not a director, the minister himself. That matters because the standard play when public scrutiny hits a controversial regulation is to distance. This was a staff draft. The minister wasn't personally involved. That option is not available here. The minister's name is on the document. What the draft does, and I covered this in detail 3 weeks ago, is reclassify Bitcoin and all crypto assets as capital under South African exchange control law. That means every rule governing the movement of money across borders now applies to the movement of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency across borders. It requires anyone entering or leaving South Africa to declare any crypto assets in their possession, not above a certain threshold, not on exchanges only, any crypto, any form of control. It contains 2 distinct provisions worth naming separately because they have often been conflated. Regulation 24 sub 3 requires that if the government is seeking to seize or access your crypto assets, you must furnish full particulars in writing of all passwords, PINs, or codes necessary to enable National Treasury to obtain access and control. That is the compelled disclosure provision, and it applies in a formal enforcement context. Regulation 25 sub 5 goes further. It gives enforcement officers the power to demand your private key, your password, your PIN, anything needed to access your crypto at the border, on the spot. No court order, no warrant. If you refuse either provision, the refusal is itself a criminal offense. A fine of up to 1 million rand, which is roughly 55,000 US dollars, or 5 years in prison. That language is not ambiguous. Full particulars of all and any passwords. That is a government publishing in writing a mechanism to compel the surrender of self-custody under threat of imprisonment. And the original comment period was set to close on May 18th. Worth remembering. Here is what the finance minister did not plan for. The draft was published on April 17th. For the first few days, coverage was minimal. Then it broke open. South African crypto exchanges sounded the alarm. VALR, the country's largest exchange, published a detailed call to action. They called the regulations overly restrictive and said they undermine the nature of crypto assets and the practical exercise of self-custody rights. That is a licensed federal financial services provider telling its own government that the draft attacks the foundational property of the asset class it regulates. Legal experts flagged constitutional problems. South Africa's constitution protects the right to privacy and the right to property. Compelling the surrender of passwords and private keys at the border without a warrant intersects with both. The crypto community organized, not just in South Africa, globally. My video on this reached hundreds of thousands of viewers. Coin Bureau covered it to their 2.7 million subscribers. The story moved from crypto-native outlets into mainstream financial press. And the South African government, well, they noticed. The comment period that was supposed to close May 18th did not close May 18th. The government extended it under pressure. That is a specific outcome caused by specific public action. A government does not extend a comment period on a draft that expected to slide through quietly unless the pressure has become material. They went from "this closes May 18th" to "we need more time." This is not bureaucratic routine. That is a strategic retreat. But here is where it gets remarkable, and I mean that as a forensic observation, not editorial flourish. Before the extension, the National Treasury's own website listed one comment deadline and one email address for submissions. The South African Reserve Bank's website listed a different deadline and a different email address. Same government, same regulation, two official sources, two dates, two inboxes. I'm going to put both of those on the screen so you can see exactly what I mean. The government eventually resolved this, at least on paper, by extending to a single new deadline of June 30th, 2026. One date, one email, which is in the description. But the original chaos is the story because it reveals something about how this regulation was built. A government that cannot coordinate a comment period deadline across two agencies did not carefully coordinate the regulation itself. The Regulation 25 sub 5 border search power and the Regulation 24 sub 3 compelled disclosure provision are doing different things with different thresholds and different legal bases, and the draft treats them as interchangeable. They are not. The question is not just which date was correct. The question is, if you were a South African citizen trying to submit a comment in good faith during those weeks, which email did you send it to? Which deadline did you trust? The government gave you two answers, and they did not match. My recommendation is still to submit to both historical addresses and the current one. Note in your comment that you are doing so because the government published conflicting information. Your comment should be on the record regardless. This is not a clerical error. This is what happens when a process designed to be quiet becomes loud faster than the institution can adapt. They extended the comment period under pressure, but the extension was communicated inconsistently across two government websites that are both supposed to be authoritative. If you are getting value from this, subscribe now. This channel is the one place connecting these dots in real time. The first video broke the story open. This one shows you what happened after. The next one will show you what they do next. Here is the part that should worry you more than the chaos. The government fumbled the comment period. They fumbled the deadline. They fumbled the email address. They did not fumble the regulation itself. The draft capital flow management regulations are still written the way they're written. The private key surrender provision is still there. The 5-year prison penalty is still there. The warrantless border search authority is still there. The reclassification of Bitcoin and every other crypto as capital is still there. All that changed is the timeline. Their mechanism is intact. And here is why that matters beyond South Africa. Every government watching this story is not watching to see whether South Africa gets the comment deadline right. They're watching to see whether the public pushes back hard enough to change the regulation itself. If South Africa walks this back, if they revise the draft to remove the private key provision, if they add warrant requirements, if they narrow the border search authority, that tells every watching government this mechanism is too aggressive. The public will not accept it. Find a softer version. If South Africa does not walk it back, if the regulation becomes law largely as written, just maybe on a different timeline, that tells every watching government the mechanism works. The public complained, the deadlines got messy, but the law passed. Copy it. That is why the fumble is a distraction if you let it be one. The fact that they cannot agree on a date is embarrassing for them. It is not a victory for us. The victory is the regulation itself changing. Nothing else counts. If you are in South Africa, this section is for you directly. If you are not, it is for the people you share this with. The current deadline is June 30th, 2026. The current submission address is on the screen, and both of the earlier addresses are in the description below. There are links to the official government sources confirming them. Submit to all of them. I mean that literally. Send your comment to all 3 email addresses. Note in your comment that the government has published conflicting deadlines and that you are submitting to all of them to ensure your comment is received regardless of which deadline and address is correct. What should your comment say? That's up to you. That is your voice, and this is your government. But here are the provisions legal experts and the crypto community have identified as the most actionable. 1. The warrantless border search authority under Regulation 25 sub 5. The power to demand private keys at a checkpoint without a court order. 2. The compulsory surrender provision. The power to force you to sell your crypto to the state at a price denominated in a currency that has lost over 60% of its value against the dollar in the past decade. 3. The criminalization of refusal. The act of not surrendering your passwords is itself a crime carrying a prison sentence. 4. The constitutional intersections of Section 14, right to privacy, and Section 25, right to property. These are not fringe concerns. These are the concerns that a licensed South African financial services provider raised publicly. The concerns that forced the government to extend its own deadline. Your comment does not need to be long, but it does need to be specific. And it needs to be on the record before June 30th. So get it on the record. 3 weeks ago, I told you that every government watching was taking notes. That is still true. The notes did not change when the deadline changed. The notes did not change when 2 websites posted 2 different dates. The notes are about the mechanism, not the timeline. In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed Executive Order 6102. It required every American to surrender their gold to the Federal Reserve at a government-set price. The mechanism was get the asset under regulated rails, set the price, capture the spread. South Africa's draft runs the same play 93 years later on a different asset. The compulsory surrender provision doesn't confiscate your Bitcoin outright. It compels you to sell it to the National Treasury at market rate in Rand. The Rand that has lost over 60% of its value against the US dollar in the past decade. Getting paid in a depreciating currency for an asset you were forced to surrender is not a market transaction. It is extraction with extra steps. The 1933 playbook worked because most people did not see what it was until after they'd handed over their gold. South Africa's draft is the same mechanism made visible in advance. That visibility is the opportunity. The comment period is open. The deadline is June 30th. Use it. They wrote the blueprint. You broke their timeline. Now stop it in its tracks. The Token Trap, my book, is available now on Amazon. There's a link in the description. I'm Dana Love. I'll see you in the next one. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe. I put out new analysis often. Drop a comment too. I answer as many as I can. And watch this one next. I picked it for you. Wherever you found me, I'm glad you did. See you in the next one.